This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
My name is Abigail Ward.
And I'm Michelle St. Clair.
And this week we watched Striptease. A stripper and single mother gets dragged into a dangerous situation after a congressman takes a fancy to her. Let's watch. Cheers, Michelle.
Thank you.
Cheers to you passing.
Yay.
Well, you share the good news. Why don't you?
Oh, I've got my provisional license now.
For
any non-Australian listeners that are specifically the level, like we have a learner's license where you're allowed to drive, but with a fully licensed person in the car. And then we have 2 levels of provisional license where you can drive by yourself, but with restrictions. And I have been on a now almost 2-year odyssey to get my Ps that has been delayed from various things like major surgeries, cars being written off, freak storms in Sydney's, a global pandemic.
Could be all yours today.
For the low price of get me out of here. Oh my God.
We're drinking champagne
Even
to
my
celebrate.
good news.
We're drinking champagne. I'm a human being with a digestive system. Gas is bad for you. Okay? Anyway, cheers to Michelle.
Yeah.
Clink.
Clink.
That's lovely. Good
I know.
job.
I'm so excited. I'm in
That's
such a
huge
chipper mood because of it.
Nice.
Like-
I'm also in a chipper mood. I've had a lovely week.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to derail your story, but
Yeah,
it is about
no.
me.
It is more about you.
We've lingered on you for a good 2.5 minutes, if that. But I think it's
Mine was a major life milestone I've been trying to get for multiple years.
no, exactly.
Yeah. Yours is more important.
Mine is definitely more important. Mine is
what was
that I
yours?
just had a lovely weekend away. What
Yeah.
a good time. I
Wow.
went out to rural Victoria. I have a boyfriend now. I'm very in love. It's very sweet. It's weird to say, but I might as well. But yeah, I had a very nice romantic weekend, and it's just really nice. I feel like I'm at the stage where like I'm already forgetting almost the trauma of lockdown where everything feels normal again, and we're very lucky that we live in a place where everything feels normal again. It doesn't all feel normal, and not everyone's forgotten, but I am lucky enough to feel like life has returned to normal in a lot of ways. And yeah, it's been nice.
For me, I feel like a lot of things are returning to normal. I mean, my work is going back slower, but I definitely haven't forgotten. It has burned into my memory forever as a huge major epoch in my life.
Also, this podcast was born in the middle of Victoria's lockdown. This podcast started in a very dark place.
Yeah, it did.
Which is fine, but I will always think of that with this podcast.
I just don't want the implication that we were one of the people who were in lockdown and then thought we should start a podcast. We had been planning it since since pre-pandemic times.
Fuck you all. We know what you're thinking, and you're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're just wrong. How does it feel waking up every day, listener,
What
and
is that?
knowing that you're wrong?
What is that? A thought? Wrong.
Don't have those, all right? They'll
Yeah.
weigh you down, all right? You need to go through life with no thoughts whatsoever.
Baby, I'm light as a feather. The way I do it, no thoughts.
Baby, I make bad decisions. The way I do it, no thoughts.
Baby, if you see me floating through the streets, it's because of my lack of thoughts mobile. Broom, broom, I'm riding into the sky.
Baby, if you find me washed up in some jail and you need to bail me out on a Sunday morning, don't ask. It's no thoughts.
Do you mean I washed up like on the beach, but it's a jail beach?
No, I'm like washed up as in like I have arrived. I have been found in a jail.
You've been... didn't they find you to put you in the jail?
The person bailing me out has found me in jail.
Oh, okay, right.
Don't question me. You're having thoughts. And I don't
I'm
like
so
it.
sorry. Fuck. Oh, no,
You
had thought...
fucking like betrayed the motto. You've betrayed our cause. I'm hurt. I'm offended. You should pay me.
How much?
Give me your money.
It's not happening.
Give me your money.
I need that.
Okay.
I need that for both rent and for fun activities.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'll just take your money.
No, you can't take it.
Just take your money.
I've told my bank you are not allowed to take it anymore.
This is what I mean by bad decisions from lack of thoughts. It gets you far. And by far, I mean at your local police station. Thank you very much.
Which is far.
Oh, it's like a whole 500 meters away.
It's not close.
The local cop shop's a bit of a walk. But that's our life updates.
Yeah.
Look at us go.
Look at us go. Well,
Proud of you.
more like-
proud of me. You got over your fear of cars.
Yeah.
I got over my fear of commitment.
Hell yeah.
High five.
Yeah. It was especially thematically good because literally the reason I only got to do the test one other time where I failed because of me hesitating and getting panicked and anxious. And this time I had a similar thing happen, but I didn't hesitate and I did the safe thing. And so I didn't fail. It really felt very full circle.
Nice.
I had to, once I was finally there again, I had to conquer the very weakness that failed me the first time. Oh, it was an epic journey of provisional proportions.
I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
I feel a bit ridiculous coming on here being like, I'm in love. I have a boyfriend. Because I spent like
Yeah, that's fucking nerd shit.
10 episodes at least last year being like, you know what, man? Fuck relationships. They don't work. They'll never be healthy. I can't see myself in one. I'll be forever single.
Well, I think we have a tendency socially to say that we are trying to reach our true self, our actualized point. That's not how people work. You, over time, change and evolve, and the things that you think and believe change and evolve. And that's not the same as hypocritical. That's just how people work.
I still think I believe, I 100% agree. And I think I still believe the things I said
Yeah.
a couple months ago. But I was saying them around the notion that I would never find anyone good enough to fulfill what I needed. Because I
Yeah.
really didn't think I would.
Now that's not true for you.
Exactly.
That's great.
Things have changed. Never be afraid to backtrack on your silly, silly thoughts. In fact, don't have them at all.
Ah.
See what I did there?
I did see what
We've
you
got two full circles converging at all times.
Oh.
What is this? This is conversation mastery.
Well, from the gesturing you're doing, it sounds like those two circles are titties.
It was more a wax on, wax off
Oh,
gesture, but
okay.
yes, sure.
Two full
Two
circles.
full circles.
Oh.
You always bring it back to my titties, Michelle.
Well, they come up a lot in conversation.
They just come up a lot. Down, girls. Speaking of breasts.
Nice. Nice.
Nice.
Oh.
Boobs, boobs, boobs.
Yow.
Boob, 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 boob. Woo, woo, woo. Wow.
Boy, oi, 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 oi.
Boy. We watched Striptease this week,
Yeah.
which also had lots of boobs.
It did
See my
have lots of
segue there?
titties, yeah.
Did you get it?
No, I got it.
I'll just explain it to you again. So I said that we were talking about boobs, right? But then we watched a film about strippers or
Yeah.
like just sex workers in general because the term strippers can be outdated in certain ways.
Yeah.
But we watched a film that involved a lot of tits. So you see where I made the comparison.
I see where you made the
Yeah.
comparison.
Just do you want me to explain it again?
No, I mean, I think you're explaining how many tits there are, even somehow less than they did. Because for a movie called Striptease, you want there to be a handful of stripteasers. But I will say, one of my first thoughts, there is a shockingly large amount of times that Demi Moore is just dancing and stripping.
It's a lot of stripping.
A lot of
it
screen
delivered
time.
exactly what you thought it would. I actually was worried. I was kind of like, oh, I bet it's actually going to be very modest as a film. Like, she's a stripper, but we're not going to see any. We saw a lot of stripping,
Yeah.
which is fine.
There were even scenes in which she wasn't stripping, but she was still dancing.
Yes. Yes. Well, look, what are your overall thoughts of Striptease?
I don't even know how I would possibly categorize it because when it started, right, like 15 minutes in, I was like, this is kind of good. This is kind of working for me. It kind of feels like a normal movie. I don't see why people rated it low. And then, like, as it went on, it kept introducing more and more weird elements. And then things like the score felt like it was like a family adventure comedy. And there was like more and more A and B plots introduced about like political gambits. And it kind of felt like an action comedy by the end of it. And I was like, wait, what is going on?
100%. It kept getting messier. It kept escalating.
Yeah.
At first, I was kind of absorbed.
Me too.
Even though I thought it was very silly at first, regardless, I was very absorbed. But then you get to a certain point where you're like, I actually have no idea what's happening anymore. Like, I thought I was paying attention, but I have lost the plot, and that's their fault, not mine.
That first act turn where you're watching it, it seems like it's just about Demi Moore trying to get her kid back. Okay, cool.
And that's like genuinely quite emotional.
It is.
Like, I'll go into the overview quickly,
Yeah.
just so we can get into some of this stuff. But that's genuinely quite an emotional arc in that it's about a mum trying to get her kid back.
It is, and that's why I was like,
And she's a sex worker.
I'm okay watching this movie, and then it like suddenly a dead body is floating in the river, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck?
100. The tone just as a general, like, my thoughts on it is that the tone of the film was so insanely messy.
Yeah.
Because it wanted to be like almost like a family film about mothers and like kids reconnecting and like how hard it is to be a single parent and being a sex worker. But then it was also like a crime thriller.
Yeah.
And it was funny, but then serious
but
and
also
dramatic.
like a family comedy
Yeah.
thing. Like,
it was a family film, a comedy film, and a crime film. It was bananas.
a lot of things at once. And to be honest, like, I'll get into it later, but I still kind of dig what it's doing.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I didn't hate it. I quite enjoyed a lot of it. I like Demi Moore, and I like that it's about a sex worker, and I like that she's, like, very smart and resourceful, and she's a good mom.
Yeah.
And, like, I like that it humanized sex workers. Did you feel like it did? Because I think in some ways it did.
Well, I think we should come back to this because it's such a big thing, because I
Yeah.
feel like it really wanted to and then kept also undermining its own point when it was
We
trying.
will talk about
Yeah.
this. Okay, let me get into the overview.
Yeah.
Just a couple of brief snippets of information. It was made in 1996. It is 4.5 stars on IMDb. It grossed $113 million worldwide against its $50 million budget.
Oh, cool.
So it did really well
Yeah.
commercially. Critically, it was an absolute failure. It was panned by critics. It's come to be evaluated as one of the worst movies ever made.
Whoa.
It won 6 Golden Raspberry Awards, including Worst Picture. And apparently the film, like, people theorize that the film caused, like, the downturn of Demi Moore's career in general.
Yeah, watching it, I was like, this is why I don't see Demi Moore anymore.
Yeah. Funnily enough, though, she got paid a fuck ton of money, and it's like, is it worth it?
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'll get into that later. Here's my overview, and I tried to keep it very succinct because there's so many B threads and, like, little things that I just didn't want to bring into it. So, Erin is a former FBI secretary turned stripper and has just lost her child in a custody battle with her criminal ex-husband, Daryl. She works at a club called the Eager Beaver with a wild cast of characters. David Dilbeck is a congressman who frequents Erin's club and becomes infatuated with her. A similarly infatuated patron named Jerry suggests Erin should manipulate the congressman to win back her daughter. Shortly after, Jerry washes up in a lake at the hands of Dilbeck's sinister business connections that want to keep him in office. Erin works with a police officer named Al who believes Dilbeck is behind the murder. Dilbeck's personal interest in Erin persists, and she's invited to perform privately for him. Erin tricks him into confessing on tape, and he is soon arrested. Erin regains full custody of Angela, her daughter, and gets her job back at the FBI. Daryl returns to prison after he's convicted of his crimes. That's it.
That's a pretty good summary for a really fucking wild movie.
Because of all the weird subplots about, like, the various other sex workers she works with. I wanted to keep out a lot of those B threads because it was too much. But that's the gist of the film. Otherwise, all the other stuff about her ex-husband is happening.
Yeah,
Her
oh my
ex-husband's
God,
sister.
the crazy the proprietor of the bar at the beginning wants to introduce. I loved this. He wanted to introduce creamed corn wrestling, and at one point said, "You just gotta go into the corn." And that's when I was like, what is happening in this movie?
I really adored the retinue of sex workers around her that had different things. Like,
Yeah.
they get that newer, I can't remember her name. Oh, I can't remember her name. Is it Irene? But she's one of the newer sex workers, and she arrives and she has, like, a snake act. And then
Oh, yeah.
Ian Michael Duncan's character essentially kills, like, the snake is killed and he replaces it with a different snake, and then the snake tries to choke her out.
Yeah.
I love these, like, weird little... That didn't result in anything.
didn't-
That was just a little separate story about him... Like, the snake dies and they have to replace it with another one. It kills...
to anything.
That doesn't matter. It
Also
just happened.
really stressful. Imagine you're at a strip club and then you're watching someone get suffocated and on the stage.
Yeah.
Really, really stressful.
There was also the sex worker with, like, enormous boobs, like,
Right.
insanely enormous boobs. And she's like, at the end of one of the shifts, she's like, "Bye, hun," and she gets on a motorcycle and she just drives off, and you're like, what a fucking bad bitch.
Yeah.
Like, they all have, like, these little moments where, like, they're actually quite a rich cast, and they're all really supportive as well. They all
are
want to
all
help
really
Erin.
supportive.
It's so wholesome.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there was a lot of things in this film that I really, really liked, to be honest. And I was almost like, wow, like, there's a lot of stripping, obviously, but it also doesn't feel like it's completely made for the male gaze.
Yeah, that was
Which
one
is
thing I
interesting.
liked. There was
Yeah.
there was only a couple of moments where it like, I don't know, obviously because it's stripping which the way they're doing it is inherently meant to be sexual.
Yeah.
But there were only a handful of times where it really, as you said, felt male gazy, where it was really sexualizing the women and themselves instead of them performing a sexual craft.
There was actually a whole sequence where, like, so it's quite tragic at the start.
She does some emotional strips.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
it's quite tragic at the start because she's, like, lost her daughter, or rather, she's lost her custody battle. Her ex-husband, Daryl, has their kid. And she can't find her kid. Like, he's taken her, he's absconded with her, and she's trying to track her down. There's literally this moment where she's doing this, oh, Michelle.
I didn't know it was going to bubble that much.
It's champagne. You got to do it on a tilt.
Right.
Michelle just overpoured her glass so entirely.
So thoroughly.
Also, by the way, this is like Moe, and we're going to be fucking drunk by the end because this is...
Neat.
Yeah. So, listeners, hear that bubble? That's pure tomfoolery
That's pure...
coming your way.
That's pure asthma.
That's pure ass.
Mukbang.
She has lost her daughter, and there's literally a scene where she's doing a really emotional strip. Like, she's literally just, like, pouring her heart out on stage, and it's quite sad and beautiful.
Yeah.
And at the end, like, there's this bit where, like, someone's, like, to Ian Michael Duncan's character, who's the bouncer, basically being like, oh, like, what's going on? He's like, oh, she can't find her daughter again. And it's tragic.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
It is tragic.
You're like, oh, your heart breaks for her. There's like a lot of little things in that first opening act where you're like, wow, this is really about a woman who's a sex worker and a single parent trying to get her daughter back. This is really emotional.
Yeah, what made me really appreciate this movie is it was like a good movie. It was like someone held a good movie, right? They held the final film reel.
They
and then
dangled it over you.
Well, no, they dipped it into a bad movie. So it's like this wax encrusted thing where you're like, there's a good movie here, but I gotta like scrape through all this really weird
almost like-
bullshit.
I didn't need the thriller element of the whole politician, the dead body.
Yeah, which
trying to
almost
save
felt
herself.
like Starsky and Hutch or something.
If it was really just about a sex worker trying to get her daughter back, or it had a believable A-plot where there was a lot of action and mystery, like if they just did that better. But like, I was thinking about like, there's a woman in my course and she was writing a story, like my screenwriting course. She's writing a story about like a woman who's a sex worker, single parent, not trying to get their child back, but trying to like remain in control of their child's life because other people are judging her for being a sex worker, which is really powerful. And on top of that, it's a horror story and she gets trapped in all of these awful things. But that's like a really powerful, potent, like thing to explore. And I actually think that the person in my course has done what this film should have done.
Yeah.
Which is like explore that and then have an actually quite gripping, like A-plot, like gripping action surrounding it. But this was just, I wish it was more of a drama. I wish it wasn't a thriller.
Me too.
Yeah.
Side note, the villain, is he played by someone notable? Because in my notes, I wrote down that he's Burt Reynolds meets Steve Martin.
Michelle. He's Burt Reynolds.
It is Burt Reynolds. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, is that Burt Reynolds?
And just some things about the cast. The villain is Burt Reynolds.
What a weird performance from Burt Reynolds.
Who, I would get to this later, but I think I should mention it now. Burt Reynolds begged to be in this film.
What?
Burt Reynolds begged to be in this film. He thought it would be his comeback. In some ways it was, but he had a comeback with other films later.
Yeah.
But he begged to be. He flew himself to the audition. He called Rob Reiner because Rob Reiner owns Castle Rock.
Yeah.
And Castle Rock was the production company behind this film.
Yeah.
They're better than this. But he called Rob Reiner and then he flew to Florida and he said he would take a pay cut if he got the role.
Oh my God.
He begged.
And look, to his credit, he's trying so hard. Like, he is acting a lot.
He's enjoying himself.
Is it good acting?
Yeah.
I don't even know. I can't say it's good or bad.
I don't know what it was.
But what it is a lot of acting.
It's definitely a lot to watch with your eyeballs.
It kind of begs the question of, is he psychotic or is he genuinely not altogether there in his head? He acts like he's in a dream.
How much of it is the congressman character and how much of it is Burt Reynolds who begged to be in this picture? We can't trust that man.
Every scene he feels like he's sort of like he's 2 drinks in and someone hit him in the back of the head and the other characters are trying to deal with that.
Yeah. Also, like, I wanted to touch on, like, the weird tone in the film that we talked about before. And then you're right. It's like, a good premise, a good movie, a good like family-centered movie.
Yeah.
With more adult themes because she's a sex worker. And then they dipped it in this weird crime drama.
Yeah.
It was all over the place. When she sees her daughter and she thinks on her daughter, it's like sentimental family music.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're watching Mrs. Doubtfire meets like Die Hard.
The whole third act, I was like, I've heard this music in like the Goonies.
Yeah. But we just watched we watched a body wash up in a lake.
And titties everywhere.
Titties everywhere. And yeah, like I really liked that it did have a lot of stripping in some ways.
Yeah, it delivered on its title.
It delivered on its title. There was a bit too much. At a certain point, you get tired
like
of it.
halfway through, you're kind of looking at your watch going like, another one?
Yeah, really? Do we have the time?
Yeah.
I've got to be at an appointment at like 5:30.
There's one like in the entry into the third act and you're like, now can we not just make this a 10-second thing instead of a full 2-minute thing?
Yeah, true. True, but I appreciated that they delivered.
Yeah.
It was just too much.
Yeah. One thing I didn't understand, and I want you to clarify it for me, please. There was like a weird slave plantation that they drove past a number of times, the sugar fields.
Yeah.
What was with that? Because they make a comment about how little they're paid. It's in America, but it's exclusively black people. And it's like, is this a slave plantation? Isn't this set in 1980 or 90 something? Like, what is going on? I feel like I missed one line that explained what the fuck that was.
I do have an answer for that.
Okay, great.
I do. It's actually a piece of trivia that I wasn't going to include because I didn't think it was relevant, but I'm glad you brought this up. Because it was, but it confused me as well.
Also, side note, to cap off what we were talking about before, I have 4 different notes that are like, there's a lot of strip scenes culminating in, I get that it's called striptease, but there still feels like an abnormally large level of strip scenes.
So this was a piece of trivia I read in regards to this. In the original trailer for the film, we see a low-angle shot of Ving Rhames and Pandora Peaks, who I think are two people that play like the sex workers in the film. Pandora Peaks is like the very big bastard woman. That shot did not appear in the film because it took place during the original climax of the film. Oh. That climax was reshot after being shown to a preview audience. Originally, the final sequence took place in a sugarcane field.
Oh.
After preview audiences were uncomfortable with the scene, it was rewritten and reshot in the sugar shack. We still see the final shots of the original sequence that shows a character being taken away in handcuffs. In the sugar cane field, what I read that I wanted to tell you later was that the original climax scene in the sugarcane field was that Burt Reynolds' character was trying to rape the main character.
Oh my God.
This is what I mean about the fucked up tone. It feels like a family film. It feels like Mrs. Doubtfire. And then the lead is almost getting raped by Burt Reynolds at the end.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I'm really glad they reshot it.
But I'm glad you picked up on that. That is just a weird alternate climax that I'm glad didn't happen.
Yeah, it just confused me because they made a big point of driving past it like 5 times and being like, yeah, they get paid nothing here. And then we just see like families of black people carrying sugarcane. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
But I mean, to be fair, same thing with like, there's a lot of loose threads in this film, like the woman that gets strangled by a snake on stage and that doesn't come back.
Yeah, why is that in a movie called Striptease? Why is there a slave plantation in the 80s in Striptease?
It just says audiences were uncomfortable.
Agreed. Correct. You should have thought about that way sooner.
I don't want to rush through this, but I do have a lot of trivia for you.
Yeah, before we go into the trivia, I did want to make sure we talked about the what we were saying before of like, is it pro or anti-stripping?
I think it's pro because I think that there's a lot of moments where they're really trying to defend it as a line of work.
Yeah.
They're also empowering a lot of the women by giving them fully fleshed characters, showing that they are full humans with lives, with family. The fact that you have a sex worker, and she never really puts it down. She says she wants to go back to the FBI, but she's never looking down on the women around her. All they show is that the women around her are smart, sweet, and kind.
Yeah.
I found it very pro-sex work, but
they do in the first act very concretely say it is work. It's a job.
Exactly.
Like, it's a legitimate way for her to get money.
What did you think they were saying at the end?
Well, okay, so I felt like they did a couple of things. One, it seems pro-stripping, but it seems very anti-sex worker. There were a couple of times where any of them were being accused of, as they said, being a whore. to use awful language, and then they were
Yeah,
like,
no,
"Hey,
true.
that's not me. We're not doing that." I'm like, well, we can respect both of these things.
I feel like do you think anyone else was doing it? Because I know the main character was saying that she wouldn't be a prostitute. She wouldn't be a sex worker or like an escort, but she would be like a stripper.
I feel like there was like a sentiment amongst the other girls as well when that was brought up. Because they were like disparaging the other bar, being like, yeah, you know, they get more money because they're all secretly also sex workers.
Right.
And I don't know. A lot of Demi Moore was like, hey, it's a legitimate piece of work and it's okay that I'm a stripper. But then there was also a huge thread of it of like, well, you know, I need to get out and I can't possibly raise a kid while I'm stripping. And I also like, I have to go back to my old life. And people being like, you're special. Even though you're a stripper, like I feel like the movie kind of wanted to be like Demi Moore is really good because she's temporarily a stripper.
I definitely get that.
Right?
I think for me, I was astounded. I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. I was astounded, though, that there was a 1996 film that didn't automatically villainize women that were sex workers
I agree
in
with
one
that.
particular field.
Yeah.
It was 1996, and they had a film about how you could still just be a full person, have your own interests, have your own life, and be a stripper.
Yeah.
That was huge.
I
that
do
was
think
massive.
that was huge.
Yeah, and I think that was just like really exciting for me to watch because you're definitely right. There's things they could have done better. I'm also just taking whatever we can get in the media. And the fact that there was anything that was remotely empowering in the film, I was like, oh, wow. Like
Yeah.
we've dealt with films that are like transphobic and sexist and homophobic. This film was quite...
It never felt like it was outwardly anything bad. Like,
And I think that it's so funny. Again, she's a stripper, and I never felt like her character was sexualized, which is
Yeah.
so strange.
No, I totally get what
I don't
you
know how
mean.
to explain that, but like, I think she was quite maternal and quite smart and quite loving as a character.
Yeah.
And I think that just brought her down to a person. I think when things are just sexualized, I almost feel annoyed because it takes the character and warmth out of them. But she's literally like stripping and she's sad because she's like lost her daughter. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh.
I
think there was things that it did really well, but I totally agree with what you said.
there was also like the part where it's like you could argue that she's just like being the kind of person who's gentrifying sex work, where she's like, oh, you know, I have work as an FBI secretary, but I'm doing this temporarily,
Yeah.
and that kind of contributes negatively to the people around her potentially. I don't. It's like if you were to make it now, you would do it differently.
You would.
We
I
know
was-
more now.
I was thinking about Hustlers and how that is a film I haven't seen. And I would like to see it after watching this because I want to see the differences that 25 years makes in the way that we represent women that are sex workers
Yeah.
in TV.
Yeah, well, especially because one of the main things with
In
the
movies.
villain, he kept being like, man, I'm just in love with this woman. And then the assistant was like, a stripper? You sick fuck. You're disgusting. You're insane. And like
But
all
that
he
guy
would be doing.
was awful at the
He
same
was
time. He
awful.
wasn't a good character.
No, I know.
So like that was what the film was saying. That's what a
No,
character
yeah.
was saying.
It was just like such a weird whiplash of a character being like, it's a legitimate thing to do. And then someone else being like, you love a stripper? What the fuck is wrong with you?
I was just really
You animal.
I was really enchanted by just again like the cast of characters around
Oh.
her, the women around her, how sweet they were, how kind they were, how intelligent they were. I thought that added a weird layer of depth to this film.
Well, but it continually falls apart. That whole like
Yeah.
7 Seas
Yeah.
sequence at the end was one of my favorite things I've watched, where she's starting to strip for him for $5,000, but she's really doing it so that she can try and get him to save her daughter.
Yeah.
But then, like, just outside of where they are, which is the boat, the crazy, absolutely nuts ex-husband and the evil guy's assistant, who's like the true villain, like
Yeah.
confront each other on the top of the boat looking through a window. And then he like grabs an axe, and I'm like, am I about to witness an axe murder in this movie while 7 Seas plays? And then he like awkwardly swings it and misses, and the other guy just like beats the fuck out of him to the point where he thinks he's killed him.
Yes.
Like, and I want you.
But it's a family movie about a woman getting her daughter back. It's Mrs. Doubtfire.
Although meanwhile, she's like sort of half-heartedly stripping and also saying "shut the fuck up," and he's so enjoying it. It's so weird.
I would too.
Oh, and also the ex-husband then comes downstairs and is like, "Hey, I'm here," and the congressman is like, "I don't know who the fuck you are," and he's like, "Yeah, well, I killed that guy upstairs." He didn't, but he thinks he did. He's like, "Yeah, I killed that guy upstairs," and the villain Burt Reynolds is like, "Huh, you killed him? well, I'm going to have sex with this lady. It's just, who wrote this dialogue? I feel like
I think Burt Reynolds' character was the biggest wild card in the whole film. Every moment watching him was a joy and so confusing.
Yeah, he was like a fly in a jar. Like, you can't... You're constantly trying to contain him.
Just to cap off the discussion about, like, the film and how it handled, like, women's sexuality and, like, sex workers in general. So I read into, like, the director of this and the writer. So the director and the writer is a guy called Andrew Bergman. He also didn't direct, but he wrote Blazing Saddles.
Oh.
And Fletch with Carrie...
Oh.
Oh my God, Carrie... Not
Fletcher.
Carrie. Chevy Chase.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I blame the champagne. I am an angel, and I've never made a mistake in my life.
I've heard of Fletch.
Yeah. I haven't seen Fletch. I put many copies of it away at JB Hi-Fi, which is a recurring thing that I state in this podcast, because it turns out JB Hi-Fi stocks a lot of bad movies.
I stuck a lot of just mediocre movies.
Who'd have thunk? But I was looking into Andrew Bergman. Andrew Bergman basically was obsessed. So, fun fact about this.
Yes.
It's based on a book.
Oh.
It's based on a book about a woman who, like, loses her daughter and is trying to fight for her back and is also a stripper. Is also a sex worker.
Okay.
And it's very, very close to the plot of the book, which he did receive a lot of, like, commendation for. They were like, wow, you really did stick true to the text.
Yeah, that's really good.
But Bergman says, I loved the book, and the funny thing was, the author loved the movie. He thought it was really, really true to the book, which I wanted to do. I don't regret it. I was treated like a fucking child molester for making the movie, but so be it.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, because it was just very sexual.
Oh.
Yeah, like, because it was just very, like, raunchy, I guess. And he says, striptease was so hard because the tone was crazy. How do you stay true to the tone? You have to be true to those strip clubs. There's always some woman with like 50 triple Ds. They always advertise, and you have to have someone that looks like that. To actually see it, you're walking this fine line. I didn't want to sanitize it, and I didn't, and I got my ass kicked for it.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I kind of appreciated that.
Yeah, me too.
Because it actually looked like it was like a real cast of women in a strip club. They all looked different. They had different shticks. It seemed very believable. And like Pandora Peaks, the woman that was like insanely, like had insanely
well
enormous
endowed.
tits.
Yeah.
I wanted to say well endowed, and I was like, that's a neckbeard thing to say. She was a woman that was well endowed. Just say tits. Just say big tits, you freak.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, like I think he got slammed for the fact that it was very sexual because it was about a strip club.
Yeah.
So that made me sympathize for this guy. And the fact, again, that I didn't feel morally outraged at every moment. I was like, he did something right somewhere.
I do think what this movie does, and I reckon, I mean, you're going to tell me, but this might be part of why it's rated so low, is just because of how ingrained the over-sexualized male gaze is, because of how ingrained the let's sexualize women at every opportunity, and in particular objectify, we tend to then view any sexiness as objectification.
Yes.
And you can have something be sexy and erotic without it being objectification and without it being the same as sexualization.
Yeah.
I think this did a surprising amount of being sexy.
Yeah.
Rather than treating any of them like an object.
And it's because it wasn't a story where it was about men in this world. It was about women in this world living this life. It's like, think of The Sopranos. The Sopranos, like, Tony owns, like, a strip club, and he's there quite often, and, like, this is his world. I'm not criticizing The Sopranos, but
you can, though.
I mean, I can. But, like, there is, like, a heavy amount of, like, female sexualization within his strip club, but at the same time, HBO has a very good knack of keeping it, like, quite cynical in its approach. But either way, Tony is in this world where it's his perspective on these, like, these sex workers around him. That's where it gets problematic. I don't want to watch content about men viewing women. I want to watch content about women being like sexually empowered and choosing it themselves.
Yeah.
I want to watch their story and their perspective. I don't want to watch men going to a strip club in a movie. I want to watch the female sex workers in that movie.
Yeah.
Working.
I'd also argue you could definitely still make a movie in which like a man is looking at a woman sexually. It's often done in this way where she is an object of sex and he's observing that.
Yeah.
And that's not nice.
Yeah.
It's not how people interact with each other sexually. Or if it is, hey, maybe you should take a step back and think about how you think of women.
100%. Also, I'd just like to cap this off by stating that, like, I use the term stripper and prostitute whilst knowing that some people don't like that. Like, I know that there's a lot of discourse around using those terms and using the blanket term of, like, sex worker. I've also read a lot of women don't mind prostitute and stripper because it identifies the actual field that they work in.
Yeah.
No disrespect meant at all. And if there's an issue, email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com. The first time I've never joked about that.
I mean, given that, like, I feel like we've had almost certainly a couple in a row, but a lot near each other where, like, we're talking on topics that we aren't personally experienced with.
Yeah.
I do want to say, I know we're both really open to being corrected. Like, if anyone is like, hey, the way you spoke about sex workers could use some refinement. Or, hey, I know you were positive about Soul Plane, but I actually think it's kind of racist. Like,
let us know.
Let me know, because I want to do good. Me too. I want to do better if I'm doing wrong.
That's why I added this disclaimer, is that I'm perfectly aware I've used these terms, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone listening is just like, hey, that's not okay.
Yeah, I know when I do the episodes, I'm always trying to do research from those groups, but sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you can still miss the mark when it's not something that you've experienced in life.
100%. And whilst I think sex workers is a good, safe term to use, I also think there is a definition between what people do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to clarify, especially in this sense, in what we were talking about. But yeah, let us know. Do you want some trivia?
I do.
So I think this is a strong start. This film underwent last-minute editing when preview audiences laughed at the wrong parts.
Yikes.
True.
Look, I've worked as an editor on feature films. I can't imagine, because my edits were so good, I can't imagine, like, the heartache of putting all of your time, multiple years for the, like, higher-ups, but still months and months for the editors. Like, putting all your work into it, and then you show it to a test audience and they laugh. And you're like, what the fuck?
It's like if you did Kairos. Michelle edited, like, a feature film called Kairos, and there were some funny moments. But imagine if they, just for you, imagine if they laughed at, like, that midpoint scene where it's like a really emotional moment where the character, like, realizes what he truly wants.
Well, we were worried that they were going to, because it has a lot of lead actors in it with disability. And we're like, I hope they don't think this is funny.
I mean, if they laughed at it, that's just them being shitty people.
Yeah.
You can't get around that. But either way, yeah. Preview audiences reacted in the worst possible way.
Yikes.
There's a lot of trivia around Demi Moore because she's such a star. Like, Demi Moore was pure star power in the 90s.
Let me tell you right now.
Okay.
The only thing I know about Demi Moore is that she's not with Bruce Willis. That's the only thing I know.
Anymore, she's not with Bruce Willis anymore.
Yeah.
As of 21 years ago.
Well,
as of 22 years ago, she hasn't been with Bruce Willis.
I know at some point they divorced.
Do you know that she was married to Ashton Kutcher?
Oh, is that why there's
Bruce
a
Willis?
whole thing of them as a trio?
I guess so. I've only heard about her and Ashton.
Well, I guess that, yeah.
But, like, she had 3 kids with Bruce.
I mean, we tend to refer to a love arrow as a love triangle. It's not a triangle, though. It's an arrow. It's one point with 2 lines to it.
That's true.
It's only a triangle if the men are also in love with each other.
True.
Basically, what I'm saying is if you want to write a love triangle, don't be a fucking coward.
Make the men fuck.
Make the men fuck. They
I
have
want
to all be bi.
sexy male fucking porn. All right? That's what I want.
They either have to all be bi or they have to all be gay, but they can't all be straight and have it be a love triangle. It will then just be a love arrow.
But then she's excluded.
No.
She's still in the center.
Yeah, she's the head of the arrow.
Michelle, this champagne has fucked me up. It's your fault, and you better drink faster to catch up with me.
La la la. Was that good?
Yeah, that was really good. But yeah, love arrows. I'll be using that in the future for sure.
Yeah, it makes more sense than love triangle.
Thank you for taking the time to educate me on this.
So Demi Moore.
She was a huge star. She was obviously part of, like, the whole fucking Brat Pack of the 80s.
Obviously.
Oh, I'm sorry. Demi Moore was part of the Brat Pack of the 80s. She had a lot of, like, high-profile relationships. She went out with Emilio Estevez, who was also in the Brat Pack.
Really?
Yeah. She was married to a man called Freddie Moore. That's how she got the surname Moore. That is not her real surname.
Oh. It's not her birth surname.
It's not her birth surname. But she started her career in the early 80s, had a lot of Brat Pack films come out. She was pure star power by 1996. So much so that, like, the reason she got a high salary for this is that she was getting fought over because G.I. Joe wanted her as the lead.
Oh, boy. I actually think she made the right choice.
Yeah. What if G.I. Joe is on this list?
It should be.
It should be. But Demi Moore married Bruce Willis in 1988. I can't believe I know all this. She married Bruce Willis in 1998. She had 3 kids by him. One of the kids was Rumor Willis, who you've probably heard of.
No.
Oh, Rumor Willis is a...
Willis?
Her name is Rumor. She was named after Rumor Godden, the novelist.
Okay.
Rumor Willis is a celebrity, is an actor. She dated Armie Hammer.
And didn't get eaten?
As we currently know it, no.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Have we assessed what limbs she has left? How many appendages are left on her?
Look at her in the red carpet, you notice a missing finger.
She was the child in this film.
Okay. Oh, right.
Rumor played the little girl.
Oh, cool.
She played Angela. When I was watching it, I was like, I bet that's Rumor Willis. Rumor Willis has a very distinctive face.
She's pretty good.
Yeah, she was really good. So that's Demi Moore's daughter. Either way, Demi Moore went out with Ashton Kutcher. Now she's just in things a bit, but this really did destroy her career because she was in Ghost. You know Ghost.
Yeah, that's
you haven't seen Ghost, but
where
you know Ghost.
One of them is behind the other and they make clay to the Righteous Brothers song.
That's it.
That's that one.
That's it.
My love.
My darling.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not singers, but yeah.
Your touch. This is the Muppets version of...
Hello.
What was it called? Unchained Melody.
Ah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
I think Ghost is like her biggest role.
Yeah, it shook me when I found out as a full adult that it's called Ghost because Patrick Swayze is a ghost.
He is a ghost. That's why that scene is so emotional and powerful as well, is that he's not really there with her.
I thought it was a metaphor.
For what?
I haven't seen it.
He left her on red in 1992.
Well, I haven't seen it. I don't know what it's a metaphor for.
I actually loved Ghost as a kid. Every time it came on free-to-air TV, I spent the whole 3 hours watching it because ads took up so much time.
Well, also, I feel like calling it Ghost, though, is cheating. You can't just call the movie the thing. That's like calling a movie
It was the 90s. They had the space for it. We don't, all right? It's 2021. We have to be inventive these days. That's why all the Netflix shows are called, like, The End of the Fucking Universe and I'm Not Okay With This and Why Are You Like This?
Well, that's the thing. You start with Ghost. It's very specific. It's about a ghost. And then you get vaguer and vaguer until you get Stranger Things. Some strange things happen.
You know, the original title of Stranger Things was just Montauk. It was set in like Long Island.
I've read through the Bible.
The Bible is exceptional.
It's really, really good.
It's a really good show Bible.
I see why it got picked up.
For sure. Either way, that's like the backstory of Demi Moore for you. Huge star power in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, here's a couple of things. Demi Moore was paid $12.5 million.
Oh my God.
For this film.
That was like That's fifth of
insane.
The budget that you said.
Yes.
Holy shit.
It was a record fee for an actress at the time.
Oh my God.
I want to know who's defeated it in the meantime because that's obviously not still the record.
Wow. I can't imagine anyone saying, excuse me, we'll give you $12 million for 1 year of work.
But she was squabbled over. So what I was about to say, Demi's record-breaking fee was made possible after a bidding war ensued between the producers of this film and the producers of G.I. Joe.
Right.
Oh my God. I was wrong. Who was G.I. Jane?
Ah, that makes more sense.
They each wanted her to star in their film first. The executives behind Striptease won when they offered Demi more money. Yeah. So $12.5 million was a record for quite a while. In the first attempt at filming more stripping, 200 extras were used to portray the audience. Although their salaries were small, many accepted the role to see Moore nude. After waiting for a while, when Moore finally appeared and started dancing, the crowd turned so loud and wild that the shooting had to temporarily cease.
See, I don't know. That's the kind of weird behavior I'm saying was absent from the camera.
Yeah.
But that's weird to hear. Like, the extras came on just to look at her naked.
Well, apparently more after that was like, I actually felt way more confident. Like, she needed the cheers. She needed she was there to strip. You know, like, that's what would have happened in real life. I think she was actually like, oh, like, this is what it would feel like. I feel confident.
I feel like it's hard to tell I don't know. We're all our whole society is in the process of unlearning a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find it's particularly hard to find the line between what is something being sexist and we're like, this is a gross thing, and also what is my internalized view of women, because we know that when they're sexy, they're liked by men, but they're also seen as lesser than. You know, we have a purity culture. Because I also know that if I was doing something where I was getting nude and someone was really, really enjoying it, I wouldn't feel sexualized. I would feel empowered.
Yeah. It's the eternal question. What is empowering and what is oppression?
I guess
it's hard to tell sometimes. It depends on the reaction and the person in question. Demi was there to strip for the film. They were extras hired to, and they were meant to pretend to enjoy it.
Yeah.
They enjoyed it too much. But she said she felt comfortable and empowered afterwards.
If she felt comfortable, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I get what you mean. Yeah. It's a fine line.
Yeah.
Depends on the person, depends on the situation.
I think, I think ultimately the answer to a lot of these questions is just that, like, a lot of the things that we think about are actually very contextual, and there's a lot of nuance.
Yes.
It's
and
crazy.
You have to assess each situation as they arise.
You actually can't just paint with a broad brush. It's weird.
I agree, yeah. Also, just a fun fact about Demi Moore as well, which made me like her a lot more. So, as I mentioned, her own daughter, Rumor Willis, who was 7 years old when the film was released, played Erin's daughter. As Moore explained, Rumor wanted it so badly that Moore asked if Rumor could be considered for the part. In reality, this required Rumor to see Moore dancing topless for a scene in which Angela, the character, sees her mum Erin performing. However, Demi Moore said that this was super acceptable, as we don't shame the body in this household. We encourage the body as something beautiful and natural. And my children bathe with me and I walk around naked every day.
See, that's kind of what the movie felt like.
Yeah.
Because when the girl sees the mum naked, sees Erin naked, I was worried, because I was really worried that this was going to be a turn where she was like, oh no, I hate this, and then we were going to start to shame stripping as a negative thing. But she was like, you did great, and I liked it. She literally
said, it actually brought a tear to my eye. This actually moved me in the film. I'm glad you mentioned this, and I mentioned it too. Literally in the film, Angela sees her mum performing, and then later she says to her mum that she saw her, and then she says to her mum, you looked really pretty.
Yeah.
That made me almost tear up, because like the main character, Erin, is so ashamed, but when she says that, she's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It was really kind.
It was really kind.
It
was really nice. It makes me think about, in the future, my own child telling me that I was pretty when I felt ashamed. And that would be such a sweet, genuine moment.
Exactly. It literally, I heard it and it literally made me tear up.
This movie, man.
I like this movie. But stop. So that's, I have one more piece of trivia for you.
Excellent.
So, actress Jennifer Tilly once defended Demi Moore in an interview after Moore received flack about her nudity in the film. Jennifer Tilly inferred that the actresses who slammed Moore were hypocrites. Quote, most of the women you hear running down Demi Moore have done nude scenes or sex scenes. It's also been noted that a majority of Best Actress Oscar winners since 1970 have appeared nude on screen, some multiple times. And I love that, because I love just hearing about actresses supporting other actresses. There's no shame in it. If you're comfortable to do it, do it.
Absolutely.
I hate the idea of other actresses being like, oh yeah, it's so gross that she would show her body, but I wouldn't.
The idea is always about creating comfort. Like, when we talk about sex scenes or nudity on screen, we're not recreating purity culture. We're trying to talk about comfortability.
100%.
If the actor or actress is comfortable and feels comfortable on set, then it's a positive experience.
I hate the idea that people are getting shamed as being prudish. Is prudish a word?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck this champagne. I hate the idea that people are getting criticized for being prudish or like frigid because they're not comfortable being sexual. That's really upsetting, because everyone is different. Everyone is different.
Yeah.
And some people are comfortable with it and some people are not. And this is a very fruitless rant of me to go on, but I hate the idea that we're not actually just like accepting people's differences in that respect. That's all I have to say.
No, I agree.
Thank you so much. Do you want to hear some reviews?
I would love to hear some.
Views.
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 That's it. That's the jingle.
We did it.
So, Striptease holds an 11% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Whoa.
The critical consensus reads, Striptease can't decide whether it's a lurid thriller or a sexy satire, which becomes a moot point as it provides disastrously incapable of pulling either off. This is a review that was left by Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal. He said, yet another case of the star's salary being much more interesting and exuberantly vulgar than anything the screen reveals.
I don't know. You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Because when we were doing Soul...
When I was 7...
When we were doing Soul Plane, I made the comment that most of the negative reviews were white reviewers going, it's a bundle of stereotypes. And they were definitely upset about the honky character, right? Like, hearing some of the critic reviews, I'm like, you're upset that you didn't think it was sexier. Like,
true.
You know?
They're like, either make it sexy or make it...
Yeah.
Something else.
But
Michelle.
That's what that strikes me as. But do you have any other reviews?
Oh, I've got more reviews.
Fuck yeah.
Sure. This is a review left by Rita Kempley of the Washington Post, who said, the film's premise is thinner than the heroine's G-string.
That's a rude
I love it.
way
We're
to
protective. I love that we're protective of this film.
Yeah, that's a
because it's about like sex workers.
Well, yeah, and that's a really kind of weird, rude way to put it.
I agree.
That is how a Wall Street journalist would fucking report on it.
It was left by a woman, though.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you started it, but then the way it ended, I was like, nah, still a fucking neoliberal.
True. Also, so that was left by Rita Kempley of the Washington Post, not the Wall Street Journal. The first one was Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, but...
True.
Yeah.
Lee Patch of the Herald Sun left this two-worded review.
Oh, it's the Herald Sun. Jesus
I know.
Christ.
Slack stuff. I actually think this is the fairest review of the lot. Because it is. Look, Michelle, it's not a good movie. It's stupid. I know we're defensive because we want to protect sex workers. We want to protect women being sexually empowered. But this movie sucked. It did.
But also, I
came out to you today. No, I came out to you today. No, I came out and I said, that film sucked.
I'm defensive of it, not just because, like, there's parts of it that are pro-sex worker, even though there are parts of it that are still a little problematic.
Yeah.
And not just because it's a rare movie that treats women as sexy without over-sexualizing them, but also just because, like, the bits that were good, I thought were really good. Like, I don't know.
I agree.
I don't think... I don't think it's... I don't think it's fair to the universe to dismiss it offhand. You know, I don't think it's fair.
I have 2 IMDb reviews.
Excellent.
This first one is a 10 out of 10 review. It was left by Eskimo Chain.
Oh.
Wow, this month.
Oh, what?
Yeah. And the title of it is all caps. And by the way, the entire review is typed in all caps.
You have to say it out loud like that then.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. That's the subject.
Okay.
I disliked this film entirely. I hate how what a virtuous woman is written to be, according to Moses, is mocked in this film. It was always one woman, one husband, brackets, faithfulness. It is disgusting and disturbing to anyone who would demand decency, honor, and hopefulness. Eat during on this one Hollywood. Sincerely, Malachi. 10 out of 10.
What?
10 out of 10.
What?
Here's my second IMDb review.
Okay.
This one was also a 10 out of 10 review.
Cool.
The title of this film est good, actually. And the A is an E with a little dash on the top going to the right. This movie is good. A classic. Because is always remembered. It is only misunderstood. It is not a erotic movie. A good movie. 10 out of 10.
It's hard to argue.
True. Look, I see both points. Equally valid.
Each one just as key as the last.
I thought Striptease wasn't deserving in some ways of being here.
I don't think
because
it was,
I worry that user reviewers hated the fact that it was about strippers, that it was about sex work, that it had a female lead that was sexually empowered in a lot of ways. I just worry about the political skew on the film. However, I will admit that the film was bananas.
Yeah.
It had an insane tone. It had bad performances. It had flat jokes. It had really long strip scenes.
Real, like a lot of them too.
But there was things I genuinely liked about it, and there were moments that moved me. So I quite liked it, and if I was to give it a rating, I would give it like, honestly, look, if we're thinking again about how 5 is a perfectly average movie, like a good year, that's how
that is our scale.
Yes. It's not as good as a good year because it's ridiculous. I like the feminist perspective that it has, but I still think it's bad. But I'm going to give it a solid 4.7 out of 10.
Okay.
What would you give it?
Well, I think so. Like, I agree that it's bad. Like, it's weird. I kept every single scene made it weirder and weirder, and more like diffuse and weird. But I also loved that. Like, I love that it could have been this like front to back, like almost like Coyote Ugly, where it's just this like gritty portrayal of a mother, but it took the weirder choice at every single turn.
Yeah.
And like because of that, I really want to reward it for doing, like, I enjoyed watching it. It just isn't good.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like if I'm honest with myself, I think it's a 6. I actually think it's better than a good year.
Holy shit, that's like the highest we've had so far.
No, Ra 1 is the highest we've had.
Did we give it like a 7?
Yeah, we did. We probably shouldn't have.
No. Ra 1 was dumb.
I think this was probably better.
No. No.
Well, but I would watch this again. I would
watch Ra 1 again.
Yeah, well, yeah. But
I would watch Ra 1 sooner than I would watch this again.
I don't know. I kind of really enjoyed it. And even though it was weird and bad and awkward at points where like it took too long to really do anything, Burt Reynolds...
That's
the end of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I really love what it was trying to do, and I really love what it did do successfully. I think what it did do successfully for me meant that I took away something, which is something I didn't have with a good year, which is why it's 5.
The good year, you come away with nothing.
So that's why I give it a 6.
Nice. That's huge. That's a monumental score to give. Proud of you.
Thank you.
For reaching out like that.
Thank you.
So that was Striptease. Don't forget to follow us on social media if you can. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram under Rating Descending.
Or you can find us personally. You can find me on Insta and Twitter under Michelle.St.
And me on Cumbucket95. No, at Abigail J. Ward.
And don't forget to drop us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really makes a difference.
What are we watching next week, Michelle?
Next week, we are watching Pauly Shore vehicle Biodome.
What? No.
Yeah.
That sounds sinister and terrible.
You know how this was kind of a high?
Yeah.
Get ready for a low.
Oh, I'm so ready for the dip.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Biodome.
Bow, bow.
Bow, bow. Oh, yeah.
And it's just like a scene of the principal from Ferris Bueller's getting on a bus and a girl giving him a gummy bear out of her pocket, but it's really warm and he's like...